the gospel of the Lord. When I was thinking about the homily this weekend, and after done a little reading and a little reflection on the scriptures, the first thought that came to me was, what does God ask? What does God, in a sense, expect from us? And what does God ask and expect from me as a person? Certainly our readings today go in many different directions, including faith in God and faith in the Word of God. One writer, in speaking of faith, said this: when he drives his car, he usually puts more faith in Ford than he generally does in God. Think about it. He puts more faith in the manufacturer, Ford, than he does in God in his everyday life. And one person sort of reflected back on that and said, how tentatively would we drive our cars if our faith was not as strong, if it wasn't on par with our faith in God? The person said, if our life was part of that faith, the accelerator of life would not be pressed down too far, afraid that the brakes would fail. The gospel today begins with Jesus telling his disciples to demonstrate their faith. Show me your faith. Just don't talk about it. Show me your faith. And Jesus says, oh, by the way, one of the ways is give it all away. Get rid of all that stuff you have. Give it all away. And I guess our response to that is Jesus. That might have been okay 2,000 years ago, but this is whatever year it is, 2019, almost 20. Huh? And it is challenging. And there's a balance. Last week I talked about this a little bit. We have lots of stuff in our life. And if you didn't get one of those flyers, then you're all the bulletins as you leave. I always loved the one because I used it many years ago, that in the average home there's 300,000 things. And I said last week, if you remember, you doubt me, go home, start counting. Who started counting? Oh, nobody. So you're not finished yet. Still another week to go. Okay. But maybe more challenging than Jesus saying, give away. Maybe more challenging is opening our minds and our hearts and our lives to the ways of God, to the ways of God. A growing and developing faith calls us to move. Our faith level, in a sense, hopefully is better than it was 20 years ago, 40 years ago, 60 years ago, or whatever. It's something that, maybe has ups and downs, but hopefully it's a maturing faith that calls us to move beyond our current boundaries. Whatever the boundaries are, they might be mental, they might be physical, they might be theological, they might be spiritual, whatever they are. The truth is, we can be attached, and we often are attached, to be truthful. We're attached to certain attitudes and certain beliefs. Just as we are to things. Now, it's always a challenge when I preach to give examples, because immediately the example gets criticized. Okay? Now, I'm going to use an example. Don't call me up. Just an example. It's probably the worst example that could ever give it. It's about attitude. Some people have the attitude, they have the belief, for instance, that they have what they call conspiracy theories, okay? There might be a lot of conspiracies, the one that's big, and again, I'm not saying it happened or didn't happen, but the moon landing. Some people say, oh, that was all done at someplace, on Earth. Well, I don't know. Sometimes facts are shared, but no. They've all been monitored and changed. Okay. But just opening ourselves up to hear the other side, to hear the facts that not only we have, or seemingly we have, but also hear the facts of others, helps us grow. And so as we live our lives day to day, where might God be calling us to enter into a situation with a more open attitude? Hear the other side. Listen. Where might our God be calling us to let go of our hardened positions or opinions? Think about it. You need to ask that question. The other day, I had the TV on in my house, and there was a commercial for Volkswagen. Thing went on and on. And what got my attention was the closing line. And the closing line was this: drive something bigger than yourself. Drive something bigger than yourself. And as I heard that, I said to myself, and I was working on my homily, when you do your homily, you have to have lots of things in front of you, including the TV. Drive something bigger to yourself. And I thought to myself, how appropriate that I would hear this as I'm talking about faith. And then I said to myself, maybe I need to end with a similar Madison Avenue approach. Volkswagen says, drive something bigger than yourself. Today, maybe we're being called to live our faith, to believe in someone bigger than yourself, our God.